I originally wasn't going to make a video on this game. I mean, can you call it a game? It's downloadable content that features a 3 hour long campaign, completely identical game mechanics from the game it supplements, and I'm pretty sure they reused voice clips for the main character. Somehow, someway, in spite of all these things working against it, Outlast Whistleblower is an absolute gem in the franchise. It's celebrated so much that it's rightfully treated as a standalone game. If you look up game rankings in the Outlast series, you'll always see Whistleblower in the list, and on top of that, Whistleblower makes up one of the 3 games in the Outlast Trinity collection. Typically, when a game receives downloadable content, it's usually intended to be consumed almost as a side dish. They're typically short, inoffensive, and completely rely on the support of the main game to justify their existence. What if I told you that Whistleblower doesn't need this crutch? What if I told you that, even with the flaws that I just mentioned, this game is more than worthy of standing on its own? I know it may sound shocking, but I wholly believe this to be true. There's 3 particular things that afford this DLC all its praise, and we'll go into detail on all of that today. More importantly, though, I want to tell you all how Red Barrels was able to take a DLC story and craft it into something truly amazing. This is a testament to the fact that, no matter what size your task is, greatness can always be achieved.
Cut away everything vulgar. A soft place to welcome my seed. To grow our family.
The story in the original Outlast wasn't particularly crazy, and that's not a bad thing at all. After all, the characters and the world in the original more than made up for it. I see this to be the first and greatest strength of Whistleblower. The story, world, and characters all blend together in a unique and awesome way. Now, how could the world in Whistleblower be unique? Don't you visit the same Murkoff facility and asylum? Well, yes. The difference here, though, is that you see a whole different side to these locations. The story begins with the titular whistleblower and player character Waylon Park writing an email confessing the horrible things that his company is doing. After silently sending this message, Mr. Park makes his way to the morphogenic testing room to begin running some experiments on a particular subject named Eddie Gluskin. The point of this test is to find a suitable vessel for a creature known as the Wall Rider. Once Mr. Park finishes with his task, he makes his way back to his laptop, only to find a Murkoff executive named Jeremy Blair. He's one of my absolute favorite characters in all of Outlast. Blair has found out all about Waylon's whistleblowing attempt, and he then apprehends our hero and forces him to become a test subject in the Wall Rider experiment. This is really just the beginning, but let's take a step back and look at what we have so far. Our story here is totally different from the original game and feeds so perfectly into it. The world here is wholly new since we got a behind the scenes look at the Murkoff Corporation, and we already have a unique set of characters that I haven't even scratched the surface of. This blend of plot, characters, and setting is absolutely incredible, and we haven't even gotten to the best part. Eventually, Waylon begins making his escape through the facility and Mount Massive Asylum. As the plot of the original game unfolded, the player was exposed to a whole host of disturbing patients and psychos, each one of them bringing their own unique tale to the player. I believe that Whistleblower takes this concept and runs with it even further than the original. I've gone quite a while without mentioning the elephant in the room here. There's a particular villain in this game that makes everything flow together so perfectly. Waylon eventually stumbles upon a familiar face, Eddie Gluskin. This being the very same Eddie Gluskin that Waylon began experimenting on in the opening. You can make an argument that Gluskin is a monster of Waylon's creation. Even before entering his quote-unquote lair, you can find several documents and enemies constantly mentioning this monster's name.
Quiet! If they catch us, they'll give us to him. The man downstairs. The man. Very bad. Very, very bad. God.
There's a brilliant build-up to Eddie Gluskin's official introduction to the player. The player gets trapped by this maniac in a series of spacious rooms. While hiding in a locker, Eddie sniffs you out. He then begins dragging you away while you tremble helplessly inside your once safe hiding place. What's so brilliant about this is that lockers are somewhat of a beacon of safety in the Outlast games. There's very little risk when hiding inside them. When this monster just grabs the whole locker and carries you away, you know you're in for a world of trouble. When we reawaken in the locker, we then find out Gluskin's true intentions. These intentions are partially what makes Eddie such a perfect villain. Gluskin is taking other patients inside the asylum, mutilating their, let's just say, male exclusive parts, in hopes of turning them into a woman to start a family with. He constantly mentions wanting to procreate with his hostages and expresses his longing for love and children of his own. Using lust, desire, and sexual frustration in horror media is rarely done right, but when it is, the result is terrifying. It's easy to see why these are all touchy subjects, yet they're so deeply ingrained to the foundation of humanity's evil nature. It's a primal desire that, in extreme cases like this, can be horribly violent. It's almost difficult to move on to my next point. It's tough to shift focus away from something as insane as this.
You're not even worth stringing up.
Oh, God.
Bleed please. And die.
Recall what I mentioned earlier, how the combination of plot, characters, and setting makes this DLC worthy of standing on its own. We already discussed the plot. We're a whistleblower that got caught, and now we must atone for our cruel work by switching places with the testing subject. We know the setting, and we went over the characters, most notably Eddie Gluskin. The final sequence of Outlast Whistleblower is a cat-and-mouse game with Gluskin. The player gets thrust into several rooms with different objectives, all while this maniac stalks us. Something is different about this when compared to other encounters from the first Outlast. The game mechanics here are identical, but there's a factor at play here that makes this encounter unique. I believe that this je ne sais quoi comes from Eddie feeling like a genuine nemesis, and for the pacing here. Before this, I guess you could say, boss fight begins, you get your own little intimate moment with the groom. After watching him mutilate other inmates, it's your turn on the chopping block. Right when you think you're finished, a rogue psycho attacks Gluskin, buying you just enough time to escape. When this happens, you know you can't let this opportunity go to waste. That cruel SOB won't get away with this, and you'll make it out alive. The player has a heightened level of determination here. The game will not take it easy on you though. In fact, it ups the intensity like crazy here. There's a couple of chases with different objectives that are separated only by brief moments of reprieve. 1 minute you're limping away from your nemesis, the next you're hiding under desks in an attempt to sneak past him and grab a key to your freedom. There's never a dull moment here. Most importantly, the minute you emerge victorious, it makes you feel a perverse sense of satisfaction. The chase concludes with the death of Gluskin. This wicked feeling of joy is somewhat uncharacteristic on its own, but it serves as proof of the psychological damage that Mount Massive inflicts on people. Wayland Park once graduated cum laude from Berkeley. Now he's giggling like a schoolgirl over the death of a murderous nut job. I can't stress enough how different this is from the chases in the first game. As much as I love every villain in it, none of them are quite like Gluskin. Richard Traeger was a pretty great attempt, but it's not the same. Few chases prior have had multiple phases, and few chases were from villains that were so personal to the player. This goes such a long way, and really, that's what makes this game special.
Check. Smiles fart.
There's more than just Eddie that makes this game amazing. I want to make that very clear. Throughout the game, The pacing and the chase designs are absolutely elite. Since this game is so short, the folks over at Red Barrels brilliantly decided that, to accommodate this, they had to turn the heat up on the player. Overall, you get more chases and less downtime. In a 6 or 7 hour game like the first Outlast, this pacing would ultimately be exhausting to the player since these intense chases can be overwhelming. For Whistleblower, though, they knocked it out of the park with this pacing. They also saved some brilliant level design for Whistleblower. There's a few sequences with a minor unique villain named Frank Manera that I like a ton. This guy chases you around with a buzzsaw too, like, how could it not be cool? One of my favorite segments happens around the midpoint of the game. Waylon uses a radio in an attempt to contact 911 before being stopped by Jeremy Blair. As soon as Jeremy is about to finish us off, a man all too familiar inadvertently comes to our rescue. The man that changed horror chasers everywhere, Chris Walker, breaks in, forcing Jeremy to make his escape while Walker hunts us through some long corridors. I know that this is Outlast's equivalent to fan service, but man, this was so cool. I also think it's super cool that this game doesn't need to lean on previous characters for support. Rather, it only does so for fans.
No. You're one of those. Too good for the likes of us. Think you're different? Something special? There are no observers here.
While other DLCs usually try bringing new gameplay mechanics to the table, some of the best ones stick with what was established and remix it in a brilliant way. It isn't often that DLCs receive the love and care needed to stand on their own, but Outlast Whistleblower certainly does. The level design and reworked pacing here goes quite a long way. What really brings everything home here is the way that the world, plot, and characters come together. This makes for an immersive experience that absolutely demands to be played. The shorter runtime doesn't even matter in the grand scheme of things. This is a complete package that's perfect for replayability. Because of that, Whistleblower cements itself as an elite Outlast game, and there's no questioning why people love it so much.